Thank you everyone for waiting, for turning out the new house. Can everyone hear us?
Yes, I can.
Awesome. Good evening, everybody. It's Wednesday, the 18th, and this is the Palm Springs Airport Commission meeting. Welcome to those people who are live here. For those of you who are future virtual, we have, Christina said we have a new AV system that we're trying. We squeeze some of this technology, and I would ask you also if you would just mute yourself, and then we'll try our best to look for you when you raise your hand if you have a question, if you want to participate. So, Christina, do we have a forum?
Yes, we do.
Okay. I was thinking that, Gerald, we asked you to do the pledge for us tonight.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God.
Thank you. Christina was the inventor. Good. All right. Commissioners, just unmute your phones for our forum. Roll call. Go for it.
Commissioner Adams,
Present.
Breslin. Present. Badillo. Badillo.
Present.
Burke.
Present. I'm here. Here.
Present.
You heard your call, thank you.
Yeah.
Corcoran.
Here.
Goddard is excused. Feldman.
Here.
Hedrick.
Here.
Hughes is excused. Martin. Martin. Miller.
Here.
King.
Present.
Hyde.
Here,
Schmitz. I see you. Suero.
Here.
Wiseman. Wiseman.
He's there.
I see you. We have a forum.
All right, good, good. Do we need to make any changes to the agenda? You know, good. Can I have a motion to accept? So moved. And
Second.
Patricia, thank you. Thank you. Christina, any public comments tonight?
We do not have anyone scheduled for public comments at this moment, but we'll wait a minute to see if anyone wishes to speak at this time. Please raise your virtual hand if you wish to speak. Dorian, you may now speak. Please state your full name. You have 3 minutes. Dorian? You just muted yourself. There you go.
Sorry about that. Hi, my name is Dorian Whitney and I live in Cathedral City right here. Right basically under the southeast airport path that the airplanes take off from. So it's a very loud area every time the planes are taken off. But that's not why I'm here today. I'm here to just talk about you know, I hear that they're thinking about some ways of taking action against some people at the airport who may or may not be sleeping there. And I just think that this is a bad idea because a lot of people who are just there for the airport are going to end up being bothered. So, and also it's just cruel and heartless to make it more difficult for homeless people when they're already dealing with a lot. So that's it. I didn't really have a prepared speech, but I had to say something about this. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you for your comments. Any other public comments? Okay. Item 6, approval of minutes. We attached the regular minutes, the airport commission's regular meeting in October. Is that, or no, this is for our last meeting.
This is for our cover, but it's correct.
Looking for a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Okay, Ken?
Second.
All right, Ms. Richard, thank you so much.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Are approved. Okay. Our next agenda item is a presentation. We're excited to have Gary Wexler join our discussion for 10 minutes and talk about the history of the design of our airport and help us to be a little smarter about what we're all managing here. Gary, are you prepared to present?
Yes, let me make sure my shared screen is working. Dina, is that working?
No, it's just a black screen right now.
Resume share.
Then we can put on multiple. Then we can put on multiple layers.
Sure.
I am. Can you give me some help on how to unpause it?
At the top of your screen, it should say stop share.
Yes.
There you go.
Try
Now,
it.
is that working?
It is not, I have your presentation, I can bring it up. Would you, you want me to try and do that for you? There we go, you got it, good job.
Top-
Here's a favor, and just please introduce yourself, a little background, what you're going to share with us tonight, please.
Excuse me, is this working okay?
It is.
Okay. Hello, my name is Gary Wexler. I am Palm Springs native and lifelong resident, graphic designer since 1985. I have been working on significant projects for the city and several of its major local institutions. Much of my recent work has involved preservation, education, and advocacy of our mid-century architecture and its architects. I'm the son of architect Donald Wexler. I'm here tonight to talk about his most significant contribution to our city. After a year working in the LA office of the influential architect Richard Neutra, Don Wexler arrived in Palm Springs in 1952. Later, his 10-year partnership with architect Richard Harrison contributed significantly to the mid-century boom in this area's modernist civic, residential, education, and resort architecture. The final project of the Wexler-Harrison era is the Canyon Country Club clubhouse. Wexler finalized the design in 1962. The concept for the design focused on the unique siding. Integral to the design was the collaboration with landscape architect David Hamilton. I show this project to you because at this time, Don Wexler was asked to submit an application for a new Palm Springs Municipal Airport, as were most other local architects. In early 1963, he was selected as project architect by the Airport Commission and City Council. First, Wexler and the commission's criteria for the design. First, the space needed. At this point, the project was a 3,000 square foot addition to the existing military terminal north of our current terminal. Wexler worked with airport consultants, the FAA, visited other similar sized cities, talked with airline officials, and worked tirelessly with the airport commissioners. It was soon realized that a much larger facility was needed. Land was purchased and the project was located at the centerpiece of the Civic Center. The size was approximately 40,000 square feet. Second criteria was the interrelation of functions in the space to maximize utilization, passenger flow, and the passenger experience. Third criteria was the expansion at the least cost without passenger disruption. The solution was 4 wings, passenger flow through the front areas of the airport and terminal, and the mechanical in the rear wings. A 20-year expansion plan was created for all 4 wings. Fourth criteria was the method of construction would be determined by the cost. The entire construction budget was $1.2 million. Fifth criteria was aesthetics, how to represent one of America's best-known resort communities. The design solution was the integration of siting, engaging the forward future architecture and landscape design, creating the best passenger experience. Welcome, this is the gateway to the city. In 1964, Airport Commission Thomas Kiley presented the final proposal to City Council that was approved. I'd like to show you some photos of the original as-built airport terminal. This is the construction phase. You can see the metal framing and the stone walls being constructed. The stone was natural stone at the time, was taken from the base of our mountain. The siding as the centerpiece of the Civic Center became the terminus of Tahquitz-McCollum. An aerial view of the finished project. A couple things I'd like to point out here. The hexagonal planting beds by landscape architect Dave Hamilton. That was very, so much of the landscape architecture was integrated into Don Wexler's design. The airport was dedicated November 1966. Gateway to America's foremost desert empire. The completed airport functioning. You can see the siding that Don Wexler provided for to the mountainscape and to the city. From the tarmac, arriving passengers, this would have been their view. Entering through the gates. You can see on the second floor where the restaurant was that occupied that space. This was the patio area between the terminal and the gates. And I want to point out a couple unique features here. The landscaping was somewhat minimal. The landscape furnishings were very specific and cohesive with the architecture. Here in this color photograph, you can see the shaded areas for passengers. They could be outdoors and enjoy the great expanse that the desert provided. You can see the landscape was restrained and tasteful. This is landscape architect David Hamilton's palette. and the entry into the terminal. Unfortunately, this no longer exists. And looking back from that location, you can see how the canopies, shade structures were very light and airy and led the passengers to the interior space. And this is kind of what Don Wexler envisioned for the passengers' experience. The architecture was awe-inspiring. The architecture was undecorated and uplifting. The architecture was truly authentic. You can see the roof line jutting forward as if supported by these floor-to-ceiling windows. The columns that were designed, you can see in the interior spaces as they supported the steel columns with the fluted tops. This no longer exists. The expanse of terrazzo throughout the entire building. This showing the terrazzo staircase up to the restaurant, the view looking down to baggage claim. This is, I think, an important photo. This photo shows now we're the area where TSA occupies their space. This shows the stone wall, the integration into indoor to outdoor space, a defining feature of mid-century design. Of great interest in this photo is the ceiling components. Visually stunning, houses the air conditioning ducts, lighting, speakers. This showing the interior planting coordinated with the exterior planting. Again, to bring that mid-century aesthetic of indoor out to outdoors, seamless. The view down to the ticketing wing, again, all terrazzo flooring, the lighting being very much in style with the futuristic look of the building. The exterior of the original baggage claim, which was actually outdoors, but it had the exact same canopy extending over all walkways for protection. The entryway into the terminal, Don Wexler designed the signage embedded into the one stone wall, all very specified styles in keeping with the sophistication of the building. So I just wanted to say that the building is characteristic of the Palm Springs modern architectural style, which embraces organic architecture in its merging of building and nature, so that the design responds to the environment rather than imposing itself upon it. This photo is that experience that was intended for the arriving passengers. This was their entry, this was their gateway to the city. Again, I want you to pay attention to details, how the ceiling floats effortlessly from indoors to outdoors. The terminal building also reflects expressionistic architecture as defined in the architectural styles chapter of the Palm Springs Citywide Historic Context and Survey. Expressionistic architecture qualities are suggested in the swept lines of the terminal building's flat, forward jutting concrete roof on west and east elevations that are expressive of flight, reflecting a trend in mid-century modern airport design that originated with Eero Saarinen's bird-like TWA terminal at JFK International. The city celebrated its new airport terminal. Palm Springs Life dedicated a 1966 edition to feature the design history of and progress of the airport production of the terminal, and featured story on the architect and his connection to the design. The United States Department of Transportation released 1982 a study of airport design and art and architecture featuring the Palm Springs Municipal Airport as an example of aesthetics and functionality. Important recognitions: in 2009, the City of Palm Springs Class 1 Historic Site designation of the front facade. Recently, in 2001, the listing on the Department of Interior's National Register of Historic Places. Yes, the architecture is still authentic. I would like to acknowledge that commissioners are now the stewards of our city's, one of our city's most iconic mid-century buildings by a celebrated local master architect. The world loves this building. With this building, we have inherited the greatest branding opportunity by respecting its ingenuity, elegance, and sophistication. We can show that this unique Palm Springs authenticity to the world. Thank you very much for your time tonight.
Gary, thank you. I know that Gerald, you would teed this thing up or made a request, so thank you for that. It's impressive. It's an important reminder about certainly our mission. Try to embrace this and all the values of it moving forward. So we appreciate your time, Gary. Thank you very much for sharing.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
All right. Okay, ready to move on to discussion items? First one is the airport commission meeting. I've had a chance to speak to many of you about this since OPCOG had proposed a change in the number of meetings we would have in 2023. First thing, and I have a couple speaking points and then about that. OPCOG has removed this proposal, so there really is nothing for us to vote on tonight relative to that proposal. The consensus across most of the commissioners was, with the amount of work that we have to do and some of the important issues we have, this is not the time to reduce the number of meetings. I can tell you in his defense, his intent was to recognize the number of subcommittee meetings that we are now all committed to, and was concerned that what should be a couple hours a month was stretching into a much bigger commitment when you consider all the subcommittees and the important work that the subcommittees are doing. But with that said, based on the feedback from most of our commissioners, the decision was made to remove the proposal and stick to our schedule. So I've asked Christina to share with you the schedule for meetings this year. I want to show you that first. Can we put that up, please? So this is the list of proposed dates for our meetings. It really follows the formula that we've done in the last couple of years. You'll see that there is no August meeting, recognizing people's travel schedules and acknowledging most of our out of town for August. So this is the schedule that we will follow.
Oh, you know that out.
Yes.
No, it's not.
The second thing I want to look at is I want to look at the subcommittees that exist right now and the chairs of those committees. Can you put that up, please? I hope everybody at home can see this. So we have marketing, budget, operations, noise, ad hoc design, concessions piece, and the long-term planning piece. Am I missing one? Landscape, okay. So a couple comments. We toyed with the idea of putting the noise committee under operations, thinking that's a more normal place for it to be. Subsequently, we discovered that there's a separate ordinance which requires us to keep the noise committee as a monthly meeting. So there'll be no changes there, quarterly meeting. However, landscape, we think, could easily be folded into operations. Also, there's been a lot of discussions with some of you who've been working with the art commission, art installation and potential adopting different art installations here. We think that should also be part of operations. It doesn't warrant a separate committee for this. And between the ad hoc piece for concessions and then the up and coming meetings for long-term planning, and along with all the rest of them, we think there are significant amount of content for all of these. And so I just wanted to acknowledge these are the standing committees right now. We're proposing to put landscape under operations along with art. And here are the people who are leading those committees, and also the other commissioners who've been put on those subcommittee meetings. If you look at the agendas in any of these meetings, the agendas have really grown, not only for our commission meetings, but also for these subcommittees. There's just a lot of really important issues that we're dealing with at once here. And it has had a significant impact, not only in terms of time and people's bandwidth, but also the impact it's had on staff. And some of you asked questions when we talked about this bandwidth for Christina, for example. Do you have a comment?
I don't think they can see it on the screen. The people on the Zoom meeting cannot see it on their screen.
I could not see this.
Correct.
Sorry, guys, stand by. To share.
Thank you.
Okay. Again, just right, these are the existing committees, including the new committees and the leadership of those committees. And the proposal to move landscape under operations along with March. Now, there were several people asked when the issue was made around the impact of all of these meetings and
Just
longer commission meetings as well.
See if he
One
can
second.
press
Someone.
the recording. Period. I'm not sure if it has the images. Sorry, we can arrange for him to give the same presentation to you privately if you'd like.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. So, several people asked, what is the implication of all of these subcommittees and also the increased volume of work in front of the commission? So we asked Christina to give us a sense of just the impact it's had on her time. And would you be willing to share that and just walk us through how things are different at this point?
Okay. Thank you, Vice Chairman Corcoran. The first chart you see demonstrates that from 2019 to 2021, the Airport Commission held 19 commission and committee meetings. And in 2022, the number of meetings went up to 28. Commissioner Wiseman had asked me how much time it takes for me to prepare the agenda. And I would like to clarify that it isn't the preparation of the agendas that is taking up the majority of my time. It's the additional requests and correspondence and additional sets of minutes that I have to prepare that adds the most time to my workload, which I will address with the two charts that I have also provided. But to address Commissioner Wiseman's question, I would say that it takes me approximately 2 hours to prepare the commission agenda from start to finish. The committee meetings take longer to prepare for because I need to determine the airport staff's availability. I then propose a meeting date to the chair of the committee. Once the date is approved by the chair, the date is provided to the committee members to confirm their availability. And once I've confirmed the committee members' availability, I then send an email to the committee members to confirm the date. I work with the chair to develop the agendas. The agenda packet is created and emailed to the committee's members, and an additional email is sent to notify the commission about the committee meeting. So the next chart, the second chart, is addressing the total hours per year that is required to transcribe the meeting minutes, which I calculated by averaging the number of pages per set of minutes for the commission and each committee, and I multiplied that by 2 because in my experience, it takes 2 hours to transcribe each page, and that is factoring in the time that it takes to formulate the discussions. The most important aspect of transcribing the minutes is to make sure that the discussion is clear and concise for the public, and that I've accurately expressed the commissioner's view. In this chart, you can see that the number of hours to transcribe the minutes increased significantly in 2022, which is due to the increase of the meetings and the length of the meetings. The third chart is addressing an increase in the number of emails that I'm receiving and sending. I calculated that from December 2021 to August 2022, I was working on approximately 4 emails per workday. From September 2022 to December 2022, I was working on approximately 9 emails per workday. Some of the emails I can quickly respond to, but many of the emails require that I research past commission minutes, airport documents, work with additional staff to get the information I need, have discussions with Octave and Kevin, and there are situations where staff must meet with the interim city manager and the city attorney. I would like to respectfully remind the commission that the airport staff have full workloads that are separate from working with the commission, and keeping up with the demands of the commission and committees on top of our full workloads can be a struggle for staff. I've provided a list of my top 10 job responsibilities that are separate from my commission responsibilities to give you an idea of my workload. I can assure you that there is one thing that this staff isn't struggling with, and that is the passion that we each have for making the airport the best it can be. And that is where staff works late hours and weekends. Thank you.
Any questions around the numbers we just shared with you?
If, when appropriate, I think there's some ways you could reduce this effort, this stuff you already have in place. So whenever that's appropriate, I'm happy to speak to it.
We're not going to problem solve this tonight, but we're going to have an opportunity to do it in the next month. And to give the commissioners a chance to think about this. And we will have a separate agenda item to talk about kind of swim lanes, role responsibilities, and you know, how we can be more efficient in these meetings. So I think there is a sensitivity around the number of hours that people are committing, especially to the subcommittees, which has increased across the board. And now we're seeing the impact on us. I do think it also raises an issue, and you'll see this in one of the comments that Harry made in the executive summary, reference to some important projects that are not moving forward because we don't have the staff to do it. So I do think that there's another issue where as commissioners we can be supportive, that we just may need more staff. For me, for some of those projects, and Harry will talk about it, is the executive summary. I'm like, I can't believe I don't have anybody to run these projects, and they're all important projects. So there's a bandwidth that we're bringing to this, and the amount of emails and requests and that type of, and I think we need to look at that as commissioners and overall with mission. But I also think in support of Christina and Harry and the rest of the staff, we may need more hands, just as we're seeing so many more issues and so many other things that have urgent, they're all urgent projects. The airport may need more staff, and I guess we'll talk more about that when Harry talks about it. But at this point, I just wanted to raise the issue that as we begin to look at managing subcommittees, and those of you who are leading subcommittees, you know, efficient agendas, trying to put as many things in writing ahead of time, to be respectful of commissioners' time, and also to be more cognizant of the impact we're having on staff, is something we need to talk about. And we all know that when Justin Clifton was here, that was an issue that he was trying to look at across all city commissions. So we were not going to problem solve this tonight, but we have another proposed meeting where we'll have some time to look at this. And we wanted to at least present these issues to you. So a couple comments. So not a change in, we're going to stick with our schedule as is. Thank you for the feedback for that. You see who the leaders are for the subcommittees, and we'll be leaning on them to help us in trying to figure out more efficient ways of using our time, both in this meeting as well as the subcommittees. And I also want to address the issue around the elections. Well,
Yes, really, yeah, it's all there too.
so go ahead.
Okay, before we move on to that, which I think is a separate topic, I'd like to formally move that the commission accept the schedule that was placed on the, we don't have it in our packets, but that was placed on the screen by staff. And that we formally approve that for this 2003 year. I'm sorry, 2023 year.
Great, thank you for that, Scott. Thank you. The motion's on the table. Are we, any discussion or any other comments? I'm sorry, we're having a hard time seeing these little pictures. We'll fix this in our next meeting, I promise. So I apologize if you've raised your hand, we didn't see you, but on this particular issue, any other discussion?
I think,
David?
David Feldman?
I think Paul had one.
And then Kevin Weiser.
Yeah, David Feldman?
Yeah, I want to speak to the staffing issue, not to the calendar. So can we just take, which one are we handling right now?
Let's take a vote on this. You're right, David. Hold on to your thoughts. Any comments on the schedule and what's in front of us as a proposal? Okay, with no other comments, all in favor? Aye. Anybody against? Okay, that passes. Thank you, Scott. David, go for it.
Yeah, I just want to say on the staffing, that, you know, we are a growth business. And in growth enterprises or businesses, you add staff in order to in concert with the growing aspirations of the enterprise. Daniel's report that he came across showed that we almost hit 3 million visitors or tourists, whatever, coming in and out of the airport this past year. I don't think we should be fearful or apologetic about staffing up in the way that we need in order to conduct the business of the airport and the business of the airport commission. We should be big, we should be bold, we should assess what we need and move forward with whatever increase in staff is needed to accomplish our collective goals.
Thanks, David. Other folks? Kevin?
Yeah, just wanted to say as the commissioner of as the chair of the noise committee, I think folding it into the operations committee would be a fantastic idea. I don't think there's enough content in the noise committee to really make it worth it being its own committee.
There may be some there's an ordinance, I think, Kevin, that may prevent that. We're exploring it. It seems like a no-brainer, but there's something that made this, I don't know, Christina, do you remember?
I spoke with the city attorney, and the city attorney advised me that because there was no ordinance for the noise committee, his advice that we need to keep it as a separate committee, and also he said to combine it with another committee could be difficult because of the noise committee ordinance has a specific formatting of who can be on it and the number of committee members.
So
We have to change the ordinance is the
Correct.
goal.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we should pursue that, Kevin. You know, continue to go after this and see if it makes more sense for all the reasons you said. All right. Other comments on this?
Paul, I saw Paul, his hand was up as well.
Paul? Oh, you're on mute.
No, you're good? Okay, so he's good now.
Thank you.
Okay, Scott.
Yes, I think your suggestions that you made, Kevin, in terms of the combining of committees and what you laid out, makes sense. So I would actually like to move that those suggestions that you recommended, except for the noise committee, be adopted. And that we move forward with that for this calendar year.
Comments?
Yeah,
Well, first we need a second.
well, I think this feeds on this, so before we, oh, second to comment, second. Okay. Now, we got comments. Again, if this is the right place, I'd like to suggest that we take the committees and we make them working groups so that some of the burden gets removed that makes them public meetings. So I would suggest that some of the effort making them public meetings could be avoided by making them working groups where they make recommendations to the larger commission, which is where the public has the opportunity to provide their input. This was something that Justin Clifton suggested a long time ago, and I thought was a good idea. And if we can entertain that tonight, I'd love to make a motion that what we call subcommittees, but are officially our committees, I believe, become true working groups and are not public meetings.
So let me build on your idea. I think it's an interesting discussion, and Justin did bring that up to us. Let us do some research in anticipation of our next discussion on this. Really push this at City Hall and see what objections, if any, exist. And if that could be one of the recommendations we take to our next meeting, which we're going to talk about in a minute. So I like the idea. Well, let us do some digging around this issue and see if we can get a point of view, pro or con, and then bring it to our discussion around how we move forward with the commissions. Now we manage our meetings.
Fair enough, and I would include our ad hoc groups in that.
Agree.
Next.
Agree.
Thank you.
Agree. Okay, back to the proposal.
So I'll accept the amended that we combine those that Kevin mentioned and that we look for, we explore turning the majority of the committees into working groups. I don't think the noise committee is going to be able to do that because it is an ordinance. And I just don't think that's going to work for either that or the FAA, quite honestly.
I have a concern about combining those together, because you really don't. It's not
Combining
standard
which
to exploring.
I see. Okay.
What we can do is add it as an agenda item for the next meeting, and then we can officially vote on it. Is my opinion.
Are you talking about noise? Or you're talking about just rolling some of these topics into the commissions?
I'm talking about adding, exploring, going to working groups in the motion.
Oh, yeah. Let's keep them separate. Okay, let's keep them separate. That's a good point. Good point. And just know that we will go to work on this.
Okay.
We'll come back with a point of view.
Yeah, but I still would like to vote on the combining of the other ones that you suggest.
Do we have a second to that?
Second.
All right. All
Sorry,
right, so
you just have the details on that. Which committees are being folded into which committees and et cetera.
I'm not proposing that, that I'm saying that, for example, and I'm sorry, Kevin, that's not true. Landscape would go to operations. And instead of creating a separate art committee, some people who are working with the art commission, we just fold that into, we just make that another responsibility of the operations. Correct?
That's correct, I think.
Paul, you can unmute yourself, Paul Badillo.
Yeah, thank you. Can we put some timelines behind this? I know that in the past we've had some issues with things just slipping. So if we can get some timelines to say that we'll get this completed by X date, it would help to move this process along.
So I don't want to jump ahead, but I hear you, Paul. And in a little later in our agenda, we're going to propose a follow-up session to our strategic planning session. And to deal not only with master plan and provide input into that process as a commission, but also addressing some of these other issues. So if you could just hold on, Paul, I'll get to
Thank
that
you.
in our agenda, but it'll be within a month. Okay?
So will people on landscape and et cetera be folded into operations?
Good question. I don't know. And I think we should probably reach out to the landscape, to the operations people and just see how do we balance the number of people? I think that's another thing we should consider. So I just don't want to have the operations committee be 12 or 14 people. But good point. Let's consider that in our discussions in February as well. Okay, so all in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right, good, thank you.
And
Thanks for
there's
this.
one quick corollary question. What about marketing? I see the number of meetings that it had is only 0 in some years, and I think 2 or 3 last year. Does that require its own separate committee?
It is.
Kevin, it is. And Kevin, you may not have been on the last call. We did discuss this a bit more. It's an ad hoc committee, so historically that's been as things are needed to come forward. And we are scheduling one for February per Daniel's slides that he's presenting tonight.
Okay, super.
But Kevin, to your point, there was a discussion, and we'll put this in the broader discussion, how we manage this moving forward, that any of these committees should meet at a minimum on a quarterly basis. Yeah, so at minimum on that. But let us put that into the proposed logistics moving forward, and we'll debate that in February.
I think the committee system is very important. Taking the pressure off of the commission, trying to do everything at once. And I also think that my survey of many of the other airports in Southern California and in Northern California, and talking with a couple of their commissioners, has shown that they rely on committees to do the work or the heavy lifting in the details, and then report to their full commissions. And they said they could not be efficient or effective without the committee structure. And I think we all, being from different organizations that we all represent, probably know that and understand that. And so I don't think we're necessarily want to get rid of committees just to get rid of committees, but we have to understand the role, what their responsibilities are. And maybe John's correct that there are more working groups and committees. I know there's a legal difference maybe of what that is, but I don't think the character of what the committees are should change, because they are the ones that will, get into the details.
I wouldn't disagree with that.
And so, I just want the rest of the commission to understand, I think those are needed, committees are needed. And that's how we're gonna solve all these issues, because we're working, 2020 was COVID year, 2021 was COVID year. And so it's hard to explore or to look at trends when you have, diseases, worldwide diseases occurring during those years. But I think we should move forward with that, and I'm glad someone. Sorry.
So I just want to acknowledge, Harry, I haven't gone to you about the discussion about staffing. I think when we do the executive report, I'll ask you what you think, and you give your commentary about some of your deliverables if you have in your report, as well as this discussion. Know that we're coming to you for that.
We cannot discuss that in the executive director report. You can discuss what's in that item. You can request commissioner request the reports to have and speak to that in the next meeting.
Remind me. Okay, cool. Now, I just want to get back to the election and move on to the agenda. Nobody has said to us officially, all right, that the city council is ready to start interviewing. But also, do we have a list of the commissioners and their timetables that we do now?
Yes.
Well, let's just take a peek at that while I'm chatting. To the best of our knowledge, the new city council has not started to interview airport commissioners yet, or any other commissioners for that matter. My sense is they're waiting for this offer that has gone out to a candidate be accepted and have the city manager on board. And then I think that a lot of the mechanics around interviewing for new candidates for the airport commission and other commissions will kick in. You're probably aware that they're negotiating now with a candidate, and hopefully they're close. And I understand that we could hear in the next day or so if that person is on board. I do think, however, that there's nothing that's going to prevent us from doing elections on the normal schedule, which would mean June. So there's nothing I've heard that would say that we wouldn't be able to move forward. So though some of you have asked about that, I expect it's going to happen. And the other comment is this: part of the struggle we've had collectively has a lot to do with the fact that, you know, I think the staff and city and airport staff, city staff, whatever, are desperately in need of leadership. And having this interim city manager thing has been challenging. So now with a person in place that the new city council has adopted, they're the ones who are selecting and putting this offer out for a candidate. Our hope is that things will be streamlined. Now, how much time will the onboarding take place and whatever, who knows? But here's the list of where we are now, and those people who've been extended as a result of what came through the city about a year ago. And
What's the yellow?
Terms that have ended.
Oh.
And just a reminder, that we have been asked by the city manager, interim city manager and the city council, for any of those commissioners that have expired terms, that if they wish to do so, they can stay on and continue to serve until those appointments or reappointments are made. We are gonna have some more coming up that are gonna be expiring here soon, and that also pertains to the election of officers. We've also been asked to hold off on that right now. But if you watch the city council meeting last week, they are moving towards working on getting the commission's appointments and reappointments back up to where they need to be again. Just gonna take some time.
Yeah.
Yes, Commissioner Hendricks.
So can, for example, I'm up in June. Is there a way that we can ask for an extension on our terms because of some of the things that we're working on?
They're up until they decide they're gonna do their appointments and reappointments. You can stay on the commission. Now, is your term, are you at your limit?
I'm at my limit.
Okay, yeah, because the municipal code does say no more than 7 years.
Okay, I'm at 6.
So, that's, I mean, like I was saying, you're okay to extend and we're waiting for them to make their appointments and reappointments.
So
I mean,
is that something for those of us who want to stay on? Since there's several of us. Do we go through?
we'll find out.
we can,
So what I would say is we'll case by case scenario, because we don't. Right, but we'll take that back on a case by case basis and we'll let you know. And if you're interested, we'll invite you to extend.
So do we send you an email? Okay.
but the appointments of Palm Springs, well, actually, all appointments go through the city council's approval. Well, we'll work on figuring out how that's gonna play out, but I don't know if they're gonna have the answer to this yet for us.
Thank you.
I think we should add to that we are doing major long-term projects here at the airport. And I think for many of the commissions, a 3-year term, which is what's in the city code and the municipal code, might be satisfactory. I think for an enterprise fund like the airport, which gets involved in long-term capital projects that go over 3, 4, 5, 6 years, a single 3-year term may not be appropriate. And I really would like city council, through whatever mechanism or through whatever means, to re-examine that. I don't want to say that I know with our commission, does, or I know what the planning commission does. I mean, I know what the commissions do, but I think going back to the 4-year terms that were here before makes sense, at least for the commission, the airport commission. And I really think we should, I don't know if we have to discuss it as a commission first, or if we can make that recommendation be, you know, for you and Off-Top, or someone to go to the city council and say, you know, hey, you know, is that a possibility? Because they would have to change the municipal code to be able to allow that.
Source of discussion.
Recommendation that you can make that Harry would need to take to the city manager, and the city manager would need to take to the city council, because it's completely up to their purview if they want to change that ordinance.
Right, but don't we go to the city council directly?
You should go through Harry. Yeah, go Harry, the city manager.
They had on their, it said that staff are the liaisons at this time.
Yeah, we've heard that too. So let's ask the question. Let's raise the question, ask and find out where they are. I've been told by a couple council members, they'll know more in 30 days.
It's coming.
Yeah, it's coming.
Well, they're new, they're finding out what bathrooms are.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Okay, I'm sorry, just Christina's last comment.
Yes.
The staff as liaison, we have talked many times in the past about a city council liaison coming back and participating in this commission meeting. Is that off the table, or were you talking about a completely different
If you,
situation?
the last council meeting, they talked about that, because there was actually a council member, DeHart, that had offered to be on the airport commission. And other council members that have been on the council explained that it can be very burdensome for council members to be liaisons, because then they basically become staff.
He got
So-
scared off.
No, he did not get scared off. They just asked to table the discussion. They would like for the discussion to be made when the new city manager comes on, and then have a better idea of where they want to go from there.
Who was that councilman?
DeHart.
So hard,
The new.
Okay.
District 3. That's all. I think that's all we need to say at this point. And that's because it's a lot of other arguments. We don't need to talk about, however, it tips on the city manager decision. And number 1 and 2, there's interest by city council people to participate, so there's interest. Okay, all good, can we move forward? All right. So 8P, the ad hoc design review committee. Want to give you kind of highlights of what's happening in this ad hoc committee. And I'm going to ask Victoria to do a color commentary on top of mine. Fair enough? So several weeks ago, we met with Harry. Now, who's on this mission? John is on it, David's on it, David Feldman, and Kevin, Todd, and Kevin. Did I miss anybody? Okay, that's who's representing all of us in this ad hoc committee. So about 3 or 4 weeks ago, we met with Herities. They had a productive meeting with them. Went through all the plans, same thing we did today with the Markle Group. And there seemed to be 3 or 4 key issues that came out of that you should be aware of that we're discussing. The first is the former, what is it called, Celebrity Bistro?
Yeah.
Celebrity Bistro is the proposed site where Elmira Soul will go, and also the coffee connection. So imagine you come out of security and the far left of the operation, that's the proposed place for that. As we walked around, one of the feedback that we received was, it's a little distant from the TSA windows. Normally TSA would walk right across and get coffee. Well, this is where it will be on the far side of this. And so what can be done to make people aware of it and to facilitate traffic that way, especially people who are departing from here. There is the facility itself, and then outside of it is a garden, which I think has a water feature in it. And so one of the things we're looking at and exploring is that space protected as part of the historic landmark, or can that space be redeployed to kind of make it more user-friendly and more attractive to people who are coming out and you want to see it. It's a little bit of a schlep right now. So we're working on
The second piece of feedback was, the menus need to have more healthy items. David was a great advocate of this. The Verities people got it. They were actually looking for that type of input. They're gonna come back with healthier menus with healthier items. There's an interesting opportunity at the top of the Bono wing, where there's a proposed bar at the top where the circle is and the sculptures are there right now. All that would be removed. So everyone likes the idea. There's gonna be a really lovely bar up there. But there were some interesting ideas of how to brand that, for example. Could we use the branding of that space to promote whatever the major events are in Palm Springs? So before film festival, there would be a month where you'd have branding around what's coming up. Modernism, Coachella, other things. And use that space somehow to promote Palm Springs events and some big activities. So they're looking at that. I can tell you they're going to opt out of PS Resorts, the idea of, gosh, we do something creative on a monthly basis in that space, which has such a great first impression. PS Resorts are interested and are supportive of continuing to explore that. That's the other thing there's a lot of discussion, there's a lot of technology that's going into both the retail and the food and beverage side of this, using technology to order ahead of time, facilitating all this stuff. Raised a lot of questions around IT specs, IT power. And so another thing that John and others were helpful with is to say, we need to know that we're going to have the power, IT power and coverage and bandwidth to support some very interesting ideas, state-of-the-art ways of ordering and having a presence. And then we also talked about additional vendors. This is with both groups, both Verities as well as Marshall Group. If there are other vendors who were attached to other proposals, and they still have an interest in trying to develop a relationship with Verities with Marshall Group, are they open to that? Both organizations said yes. There's a process. I'll let Victoria tell you about the process, how other companies, food or retail companies who want to get involved, even now, how they can do that. I'll let Victoria tell you about that. So we just stop on the Verities piece. Color commentary, did I miss anything?
Well, one thing I do want to say is, we definitely, Verities is looking into, what they can do with that bar option there. We also got to keep in mind that we also have an advertising contract that, they pay for, with Lamar, that pays for, they pay us a percentage rent for doing advertising out there. So we always have to make sure that we're keeping that in mind for what we put out there. To add, we are definitely looking into some IT discussions with both Verities and Marshall Retail Group. We've already established working groups where we're meeting on a weekly basis, and we're kind of getting everything hashed out and planning what's, our construction, our plans and everything to move forward to get those new business operations in place. So, we put out this request for proposal back out in June, and we received our bids for it, and we did select Verities and Marshall Retail Group. And what they did, beforehand was went out to the community, and even the airport did a pre-proposal conference and went out to the community and had them come here and ask questions and tour the airport. So they started working with some local vendors, some regional vendors, some national vendors, to get in here at the airport. And they continuously do this, this outreach and surveying the area for new products and new services that they can offer and sell inside of their stores. What the airport has done is we put online the point of contact for both Marshall Retail Group and for Verities, that if there's any type of interest in Palm Springs, Coachella Valley, and even, branching out further in the valley here, that they're able to reach out directly to Verities or to Marshall Retail Group. And the Marshall Retail Group has asked for them to provide a catalog, whatever business that's interested, to provide a catalog to Marshall Retail Group, and then to make contact with the email that we have on our website there. So we're making headway, we're getting started, and so hopefully in this next coming year, you're gonna see a lot of new changes here at the airport.
It's gonna be great. Let me tell you a little bit about the meeting today, Marshall Group, and then I'll go to the subcommittee. Kevin, David, you guys have any color commentary, jump in. The meeting with the Marshall Group, in my opinion, went very, very well. Some of us were concerned that the vendors that they chose to deal with, these are retail outlets, did not reflect the strength of Palm Springs brands and Palm Springs small businesses. So there was a discussion, David could give some color commentary about other brands that we think should be represented, could be represented. Again, they were open, like, bring them on, let us. So additional potential vendors with Palm Springs or Palm Springs related items were there open to that discussion. Some of the retail outlets I felt, and Kevin and I may have a different opinion on this, could be branded more specifically to Palm Springs. And even in that situation, one called Hello Joshua. Right?
Hey, Joshua.
Hey Joshua. And then the other one was Mojave
Oasis.
okay. Is there an opportunity to make these stronger Palm Springs brands? And they were open to those ideas. Kevin made a comment that he felt that something that reflected the whole valley is not a bad thing. My point of view was, this is not the Coachella Valley International Airport, it's the Palm Springs International Airport. We need to have more Palm Springs branding in here. So I think there's some ideas that are kicking around. Again, delighted to see that they were open to these ideas. They said now is the time, both in terms of product as well as branding. So there's some next steps there. There's some interesting use of technology that they have in their proposals. You should talk about the Amazon thing. And they also have some really cool ideas, like a coffee cart that could move in different parts of the airport. That could just give our guests more options.
Coffee and ice.
Coffee and ice cream.
And that would be pretty interesting, but no,
So before we talk about next steps, David, Kevin, anybody else, any other color you would want to share with the group, or did we hit the bullets?
Yeah, I think you hit it right on. Thank you.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay, next steps. So the ad hoc committee is, Victoria setting up follow-up meetings. And like she said, they have a whole rhythm that they put in terms of how they're going to start meeting on a periodic basis. And we hope to get the answers from Parodies and the Marshall groups to some of the issues we raised within the next month. Is that fair?
yeah.
So that's our next step. They have the issues. We have some ideas, some things we've been asked to do, and we'll be in touch with them in the next month and come back and just tell you where we landed on some of these. Any other comments?
No.
Okay.
Kind of just clarification, you said something I don't understood. You talked about Lamar and the necessity of Lamar. Is that in the context of the idea of the promotional, that guy? Okay,
Yes.
thank you. That's what I thought.
Okay, move on. Noise committee.
That'll be Harry.
All right, thank you. Well, so I haven't spoken much yet, but happy new year, everybody, since there was first on that. I am going to speak to October's meeting, and then Commissioner Wiseman can update on today's earlier meeting. So for October's meeting, just so everybody's aware, we did have one general aviation and one military noise complaint for the month of July. One general aviation noise complaint for August, and one commercial aviation noise complaint for September. That's pretty much on par with what we see. Expectation was that would increase obviously onward. Start flight activity. Commissioner Weissman is going to speak to that in a second. But for the most part, we're doing well on noise complaints, at least those that were reported to her. So you know, for the commissioners out there, if you don't know what the process is for noise complaints, generally speaking, they report that to our airport staff. Just dial the main number, it's into your phone tree, and that either leads you to our operations lab, right? Staff will log it, and we'll determine whether there's a mitigation action out there. I did also report out in October that we were entering the final stages of our agreement on master plan study. And that would have an impact on noise as well. And so the idea is that as we get closer and closer to that planning process, that we want to really focus on making sure that this commission understands the definition that this to noise with regard to communities, particularly those that are and so, we're master plan in a second, but for the specific purposes of the just wanted to make sure we use up to speed on that. So that was the October report. I would ask the Commissioner Weissman for his first report as the new chair.
Thank you, Harry. If you wouldn't mind going over the I think 3 or 4 noise complaints we had between October and now, just because I didn't take great notes, and then I'll go over the rest of the meeting.
Absolutely. So for the month of October, it was 1 commercial aircraft noise complaint. The month of November, 1 commercial and 1 military, so for a total of 2. And in December, it was 2 commercial aircraft.
Great. And they were all basically things that were under FAA control and that we can't really do anything about. Besides that, Harry mentioned in regards to the master plan that the noise committee should be providing feedback and input from the community regarding noise and feeding that into the master plan process. One thing that I asked for was that you could maybe take a look at the past noise complaints and assess if there was a particular directionality where complaints were heaviest, and that might help inform us where a potential noise barrier might be most effective. That was the conclusion of the meeting.
And so with that, that's the conclusion of my report and 8.
Excellent, excellent, thank you. Band booty runway artwork display. What the hell is that?
So back at our October meeting, we had a presentation for the Band Booty Runway artwork display. And the commission requested that we bring this item back so that the public arts commissioner, Gary Armstrong, could work with staff to determine what would be the best location for this display. And we were actually asked to bring back a plan A and a plan B, or option A, option B, which we've done. And option A would be in the center area, which would allow passengers to walk by in both directions on each side. And option B, which was originally presented, is against the wall there. And this is located just to the right as you walk in the main entrance. In terms to the right, going towards the ticket counters, that's where it would be located. Staff believes that option A would be the best location for customer experience. And we have confirmed that the display can be secured to the ground. And that's Band Booty Runway.
Give a picture of this.
One question.
Okay. So the
Does staff think that option A could cause any sort of traffic issues with people kind of gawking at the thing and hanging around there and create a traffic jam, or is it not really a concern in that area? I'm not terribly certain where exactly in the airport this is placement wise.
Yeah, so thank you for that question. That's looking southward toward ticketing. And actually that we believe that's going to be a natural delineator for some of our TSA versus airport traffic. But I think that would be more helpful to us in the location that we're recommending versus against the wall, plus it gives more visibility to these.
Is it just past the ramp? There's a ramp after ticketing that you go up.
So it's just north of Alaska to get out.
Okay.
Do you have a picture of the artwork?
It's in the packet.
Okay.
There's no ADA issues regarding that placement, right?
His hand up.
Thanks, Victoria. I recall when we did the tour with Gary from the Arts Commission, as well as the museum, and I can't recall which of the two, so perhaps Victoria or other commissioners might remember. When we talked about this in particular, they mentioned something that they wanted to affix to the wall. Either that was more information on it from the artist. Does anybody else recall that? And have we reached out to those two gentlemen to see if they are comfortable with this not having any other display information?
Are you referencing post security or pre-security, or is this still the van booty situation?
This is Ban Booty, yeah, back to what Christina had up, I believe there was one option up against the wall, which is the one we discussed during our walk that day. And they mentioned that they wanted to either affix some kind of placards, perhaps explaining the art in more detail or giving credit to who's donating it or loaning it to us at the time. And I just want to make sure that we've checked with them to make sure if we move with the other option in the center, and I do agree aesthetically that is probably a better look, that those gentlemen are okay with that.
Yeah, originally, we had discussed putting it up against the wall, so it would technically be option B. But then internally, staff got together and we discussed that maybe it would be better if we just put it right where, down the center where option A was. And then if they did have anything that they needed to affix to it, maybe that could be something that they add to like a little stand there down at the bottom, or even in front of it, maybe like a little placard or something, but, so our original decision was to put it against the wall, but then we relocated that and we thought, let's just put it right down the center.
We might be able to reach out and ask them if they can put that placard on the stanchion or bring something that we can either affix to the piece itself or fit adjacent to it.
Great.
That would identify ours.
Thank you.
Is this topic for information or are we supposed to vote on this? We are?
I make a recommendation, we go with a plan B.
For a second? Second. All in favor of Plan B, say aye. Aye. Anybody knows? Any knows?
No.
No,
No.
No.
I'd be a no. I would recommend option A.
Option A in the display was in the center.
Did you mean to say this?
I meant to say the center. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Amended.
I thought he meant A, so.
So we're voting for option A, all in favor?
Option A in the center, aye.
All right, thank you, Kevin.
One other, so when we're talking about the wall display, was that what they were talking about, or is that what Todd was talking about? In this picture?
The wall display, well, let's
See, there is, in the packet, there is
Next page.
no, I know what he's there.
So is that what Todd's kind of referring to? Because wouldn't that be available, just to put it on the wall, no matter where the display is?
Yeah, the wall is still available. I'm not sure if that component of it was supposed to be a part of the Van Booty part of it. The wall is still available.
Okay, I'm just assuming it because it's with the picture, but if it's not, I just wanted to know. So that's still an option.
I think it's.
There it is, yeah.
What it's on.
So it's this down here, it's this display case, I see how the bottom is a runway, well, it's supposed to be a runway. That's the runway part of it. And then there's the case that's enclosed that has the TSA confiscated items.
Okay, so the wall art has nothing to do.
No.
No,
Okay,
we didn't vote for the wall.
I like the wall art.
Okay, thank you all. Thank you, Kevin, Denise. We're good. Airline schedule. Who's leading this one?
I am leading this one as well. Give me 1 second.
Daniel, you're up next.
So. Sorry. That was again. Okay. All right. So in the agenda packets, we've been providing these airline arrival. The flights, and there's a one next in the column to show that there's a flight for that day for that flight. Nadia Siri, who's now retired, is the one who was creating these reports before, and my understanding is it was taking her about 6 hours to create this report. So before I venture forward or have another staff member venture forward with continuing to provide these reports, I wanted to confirm that this is a report that the commission needs. No,
Yeah, this is, we're killing trees from.
that's what I thought.
So, was that your motion? No, not to kill trees from no reason. Again, I don't, this is a broader, bigger discussion, but I think there's a great opportunity now to take this perhaps to look at what I'll call metrics for land side, terminal side, and air side. These are metrics for air side and marketing. And I think that we could present them in a much more consumable way for both staff and for the commission, right? And it's back to, you know, visualization of the data and what are the changes year to year that we could act on or require attention, or we're on that 45-degree climb, keep going. So I don't know how you want to address it at a commission level, but I take this opportunity to relook at all of reporting to the commission and look at what staff needs first. And then what can we simply, to remove that burden, simply repackage for commission to use, what this is going to be, it's more plans. And how have we done, and where are we going?
Did you say that what Daniel provides in his marketing report would be?
It's closer, but I don't think it's exact. I think I think what I'd like to see is a trend in where we are year over year, and then the implications of the trend, or what does that mean for operations? So coming back to the growth that we continue to see, which is fantastic, it continues to burden other aspects of the airport. And it's trying to understand what's leading, what's lagging, how should we address that? So again, it's a longer discussion than I talk about reports, but this thing, if you never did it again, I don't think we just. But we do need to understand what's going on with our airlines and what's, you know, and the customers that are coming into it. So I don't know how the commission would like to do it. I mean, I'm happy to jump in with the right people to.
The commission pertaining to your point. I think I have some ideas, short term and long term. That if you all, but you can discuss that in the next meeting. So there's ideas already flowing out there, already in discussion. Rita, the new city manager. will be-
Great. So agenda next time.
Super, great.
I just want everyone to keep in mind that we also have to think about the public. I mean, there's things for the staff, there's things for this commission. We also have to think about the public, because that's really who we're all serving. And so any changes we do, and I'm not saying this is needed or not needed, that's a good discussion for next. I think we need to keep in mind, what does the public want to see? And what does the public and the citizens want to know? And so as long as we keep that in mind as well, I think it's great for the staff, I think it's great for the commission, but we also have to think about the public and what they want to see as well. So that's all I want to comment on.
Good point. So we'll add that to the agenda for next time. Look forward to see what ideas you come up with. Okay, Daniel.
Hi, good evening, everybody. So I know my report was sent to you guys earlier today. My thoughts are to save some time at 7 o'clock. I will just take questions instead of going over it. You've already read.
So kudos on the busiest year on record.
That's great. Yes. Definitely, I'll get you a press release tomorrow morning about that. So yes.
Is there any limitations in the morning when we had that huge outflow that around flights around 6 a.m.? Are there any issues with that, or are we still at capacity, or can we still add more flights during the critical 6:30 time period?
I mean, you talking limitations like on gates or?
TSA access gates, a little bit of everything, processing the passengers, so there's not long lines. Are there any agenda plan items that, okay, yeah, you can leave, but you can't leave until 7 o'clock? I mean, are there any issues with that?
With not trying to military, you know anything?
I believe we are getting more constrained, for sure.
Right, but it's my guess.
But we're not at the point yet where we're having this.
That's my, yeah, I guess. Thank you.
Other questions?
Were there any long-term effects that problems with Southwest had in terms of the operations, and are we anticipating any more problems with not just Southwest, but with other airlines similar to what happened with Southwest?
Well, I don't know that anybody's going to anticipate what happened to Southwest, to be honest. They're fully recovered, and our impact, I don't have these installations. But it wasn't, we were definitely not as heavily impacted as other ports, because we have some presence. We did have several cancellations. My flight was only got canceled during that time period. As far as I know, everything should be fine. I know they have a commitment to working on their systems and get everything where they need to be to make sure they don't have another meltdown. I've seen several articles from their CEO on that. Other air carriers do not have a similar experience, but of course, other air carriers operate their networks differently than Southwest. That's kind of had a big impact on how Southwest close their aircraft.
Okay.
In winter sport, obviously.
Yeah. I like that canceled.
Patricia.
I'm just curious, so you meet with stakeholders again in late January, is that already?
We set that meet this afternoon, will be the 24th of next week. For the extra technical group, yeah, so we'll go up that one, then we'll be sitting with the marketing committee, followed by commission and city council, so. I'm not gonna put this in stone, but I am aiming for a May completion. But again, making sure we get this right is the first priority over the schedules.
It's a completion.
The whole logo and new website. Yeah, the new logo, website, like stuff, but we have done.
So engaged in the January meeting?
It's gonna be on Zoom.
Is it possible to add into your monthly report, just budget? So you got to spend, you're spending it on a FY basis. And it's on these programs, for example, the website is a program, there's a bunch of programs. Can we add that in?
I can look into that, sure.
Zoom, anybody on Zoom questions?
I was just curious, I was just curious, Daniel, if we had a big impact from the NOTAM ground stop a week or two ago, and or if it was rather blunted.
Oh, there have been a few delays. No, there was a couple of cancels that day, but I don't know if they're related to that. Unfortunately for us, the West Coast, it happened at 6 a.m. our time, so we were all kind of just getting up and ready to go. So our first morning bank, there were some delays, maybe 30 minutes, but by 6:30, everything's back up and running. So Our head start today were a little delayed, and of course, there are cascading delays throughout the rest of the day, just simply because the airplanes were just running behind. But other than that, overall, the impacts were, I think for what happened, pretty minimal.
Cool.
All right, Cap? Yes, Patricia.
And just follow up on the local meeting. Last time we were invited, are we giving the invitation again? I mean, about that. Is it to a point where it's closed or?
Well, this one, yeah, we're just working with small stakeholders.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we'll be bringing back to the committee, more committee, you know, there, but yeah.
Thanks.
Okay.
Sorry.
And logo change, one that you.
Yeah, we just have new options and it's looking very, very nice, very Palm Spring, very mid-century. I think when the committee's done with the stakeholders, we've got modernism, preservationists, people who are well more versed in modernism than I am. And I am really excited for what it's coming to. I think you guys will be pleased after what you're gonna see.
Good, okay. Let's move forward. Chris Moody, are you with us?
I'll go ahead and I'll do the introduction for this, and then I'll look to Chris to assist and provide any clarification that I may miss out on. So Measure J. So I'm just gonna give some background history on it, and then talk about what we have in funds that are available, and then what we can use them for. And then Chris can kind of chime in and kind of help out with the process on that, and how it's gonna work with our commission and then the Measure J commission. So the city adopted a voter approved 1% add-on sales tax starting on April 1st, 2011. Then later, the FAA implemented a policy change regarding the use of add-on sales taxes generated by airport fuel purchases to be expended on airport capital projects and operations. In addition, the voters of Palm Springs approved an additional 0.5% add-on sales tax at the November 7, 2017 election, which went into effect on April 1st, 2018. To date, the airport has approximately $1.3 million in Measure J funds to use on capital expenditures or operating costs. The airport's going to budget for, in fiscal year 2024, the projects that the Measure J funds will be used for, and propose to the Budget and Finance Committee, as well as the Measure J, the projects that are expected to be completed. So Chris Mooney's on the line. He is the Assistant Finance Director for the City of Palm Springs. Chris, was there anything that I missed on there? Maybe you want to talk about the process of how it works, the Measure J process and the airport commission process?
Yeah, so good evening, everyone. It's good to see everybody. The Measure J Commission has been budgeting for this since the FAA rule went into effect in 2017. Been budgeting about $200,000 a year for the sales tax on any jet fuel, aviation fuel to be set aside for airport projects. So we've accumulated 1.1 million, and then the $200,000 for this year will be 1.3 million, as Victoria just said. So getting down in a little bit of the weeds, we don't really, it's kind of hard to pinpoint the exact amount. And because of the way the state of California collects their taxes, there's not a whole lot of clarity into the sales of the businesses that generate or that we purchase airport fuel from. So we need to go back and look at a process that was first initiated back in 2017 by prior airport aviation directors, prior finance directors, and we need to make sure that process can be re-implemented to make sure that the amount of $200,000 a year is the right amount. So that's kind of our first step. Then once we, so we just came up, we kind of stumbled on this last Thursday, myself, when I was preparing some reporting for the Measure J Commission. And just to preface it, the Measure J Commission, while they know that this is an item in their budget every year, we haven't been putting it in our reporting. So tomorrow night, when we meet with the Measure J Commission, they will see the total cumulative amount in our reporting for the first time. So, and we'll make that very transparent to them as well. Now, as far as future projects go, back when this rule was established, it was the city's responsibility to develop a process and communicate that with the FAA. So through a written letter, which is really what we're basing our guidance on, because none of us were here back then, is a process that's outlined on how to collect the funds and how to use the funds. The process of using the funds is as follows, and is stated in the writing. So it's going to be the city staff recommendation to the Airport Commission and to the Measure J Commission. So just as an example, let's say Harry and his staff will generate a list of projects that the funds can be used for. The Airport Commission has to agree. The Measure J Commission has to agree. I don't know if that's a joint commission meeting. We need to figure that out, and we'll figure that out before we bring any sort of projects to the commission. But that's the way it works, is that there has to be recommendations by city staff, and both commissions have to agree upon the projects. So as Victoria said, there's 1.3 million. We've got a little bit of homework due to make sure that we can reestablish the process that was put in place in 2017. We will do that, and we will keep the commission updated on any further developments as we go through the process of getting the process back in place and making sure that we have all of our ducks in a row for all the funds that set aside. In addition to that, I will say, so the FAA rule was designed for all local taxes. So it's the 1% Measure J sales tax. In addition, we believe that it also, our 0.5% Measure D sales tax also qualifies. We have not, to my knowledge, been setting aside funds from the Measure D sales tax. So if indeed that does qualify, and I will work with city attorney and others to be sure that we are doing the right thing and we have our ducks in a row. But if indeed the Measure D 0.5% does have to set aside funds, sales tax collected on aviation fuel, then we will go back to when that tax was implemented in 2018, and we will recover those funds to be set aside for airport projects as well. So we still have some homework to do, but we wanted to be transparent to the Airport Commission. We want to be transparent to the Measure J Commission on what we've recently found out, so that we can all kind of know that there's some funds out there possibly to be set aside for future budgeting years. Be more than happy to take any questions if anybody has any.
Commissioner Wiseman, you have a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering if you could remind us who's on the Measure J Commission and who's the chair, et cetera, that sort of stuff.
The chair is Naomi Soto, and I'll have to bring the list to you later.
Okay.
I don't know who's all on the commission. I've just recently been a part of the commission just for a couple of months. So, but we'll be sure to get you that list.
If you go online, Kevin, in the city of Palm Springs, you look at the commissions and you'll see all the names on it.
Yeah.
So, Chris, are these funds then, because it's been a long time since I remember what was allowed to be spent with Measure J funds. But if I'm not mistaken, Measure J funds could not be used for operations or administration. Am I incorrect in that?
So I think, yeah, so we can use it for services. The ordinance does specify services. It does call out public safety specifically. But again, so I just encountered this last week, and I have been talking with the city attorney on specific use. I think the assumption is it's mostly capital, but they do call out services in the ordinance.
So if the airport staff and the commission wanted to use it to, for example, add more staff, then that would be an acceptable use for these funds.
Yeah, we'll clarify with the city attorney for sure, but possibly.
Okay, I think we'll need that clarification, at least as a member of the budget committee, so we can understand that.
Yep, we will bring that to you for sure.
Okay.
Chris, would it be fair to typify this as found money? Did we just find 1.3 million bucks?
No, we've been accounting for it. It just hasn't been really reported on very specifically in our reporting. So, but it has been budgeted. It has been budgeted. It has been carried forward in our accounting system. So, and that's how we found it is we saw it being carried forward this year. And so we just thought we would better put it on some of the reporting. So you all are, so we're transparent with you and transparent with Measure J.
Okay, then is the 1.3, is that yearly or is that from the inception of Measure J up to today? Help me understand the time period that collected the 1.3.
It's been since the inception of the rule when it was first in place in December of 2017. So once the rule was officially enacted and approved, then my understanding is we started setting aside funds at that time. Measure J was enacted in 2012, I believe, and Measure D was enacted in 2018.
Got it. And we haven't touched this funding up until now, and we have to get clarification of what we can use it on, but it's pristine and sitting there, hopefully waiting to be used.
It is. It's part of the Measure J fund balance at this time. So
Okay.
once we approve projects, then we will just use the Measure J funds for funding whatever projects the commissions come up with.
Last question, what do you think, what's your estimate on annual revenue based on this? How much money will be available in years going forward?
I really honestly, so we budget $200,000 a year. But until we get some sales information from the fuel providers, I really can't honestly answer that question.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Other questions? So next steps?
Next steps on this is we're going to go back and do some more homework. We will clarify on what kind of services or capital or what else that these funds can be used for. We'll go back and look at the FAA ruling a little more specifically as well to see if they call anything out in that ruling for what, because right now I only see airport projects and that's a large sum of money, or a lot of things. And so we're going to go back and do some homework and hopefully we'll have an update for you at the next commission meeting. And then we'll take it from there. Again, as I said, I'm taking it to the Measure J Commission tomorrow night. So we'll get some of their feedback as well. And we'll start working on how we can use these funds.
Excellent. Part of that, Harry, is this money going to be able to be vetoed or dictated by the airlines?
No, it's not considered revenue. So it's really hard to send it far down. And Chris will have to back me up with that far down.
Okay.
Can Measure J people say, don't spend it there, we want to spend it over here?
Both commissions, so that it's a very loosely worded letter because it's just a letter from a couple of finance directors ago to the FAA director in 2017. And really all it says, and I think we have to go back and specifically look at the ruling. I'd like to get the city attorney's opinion, but it just calls out, airport projects. Yeah, yeah.
To be continued, thank you.
If there's an argument, I'm sure the city council will be the one that makes the final.
That is true.
And as far as the can Measure J say no? As far as I know right now, both commissions just have to agree. I'm just going to assume it's a majority agreement, but again, that's probably something we'll have to look at too.
Well, we win because there's 19 on our commission and there's only 4 or 5 or 6 on theirs.
Very true.
Hi, Chris, we look forward to an update next month. Thank you for your time tonight and for giving us this information. It's exciting. Thank you for being here. Okay, financial summary.
Okay, so I've included the financial summary in your packet for ending December 31st, 2022. I'm going to just ask if anybody has questions, but also I want to give a real quick update. So we have not had a budget and finance committee meeting since our last one, which I want to say was about a couple of months ago. And so, I am working with, the commissioners that are part of that budget and finance committee to kind of revise some of the reports, and even working with our finance department for, creating some new reports. So hopefully within the next couple of months, we might see something a little bit different. We may bring it just to the finance and budget committee, but then we may bring some of it to the airport commission. But just to give you that update there, we're definitely working on those new reports. So does anybody have any questions about the financials? If no questions, thank you so much, and we're going to move on to the next item.
Master plan agreement, Eric?
All right, so. Slide goes. So this is actually an item for vote to recommend to city council for January 26th. I've been briefing the commission that we were under procurement for a consultant for a master plan process. Airport did select a preferred consultant, have Ryan Hayes on the line. I'm going to ask him to speak in a little bit and introduce himself and maybe provide some background and some context for how being a the consultant now that we selected is Mead & Hunt. They're a national firm. They've done work on airports all over the place. They're very familiar with how to do planning. And then hopefully they will provide a really good master plan for it. But I wanted to just set the stage here to provide the commission with some background on the process. So if you want to slide. Great. So the history here is the last true comprehensive master plan we had conducted was around the 2001 time frame, and it's a little bit nebulous when that started. It's not one, but it was around that era. 39 when we actually truly comprehensive master plan process there. Since then, the only master plan update that we've had was in 15, and that was specific to the terminal complex. So really what was looked at the time was how to grow the terminal. Obviously, the terminal hasn't grown, and the assumptions that we faced at the time are outdated. The reason we need a master plan now is for those issues that you see on the screen. So we've got some safety issues on the airfield that we need to be addressed. Some of which we are currently addressing through a hotspot study, but also some capacity issues as well on the air side. The consolidated rental car facility has been an ongoing issue about where to site that, where it's best functional, how large it needs to be, etc. So we're trying to address that. The FIS, International Rentals Facility, that's apparently in our ordinance. So we're looking at, okay, where is that going to be cited if we go ahead and pursue that? Growth and capacity issues I've explained, vehicle and aircraft parking are an issue for us, as well as if you can come, in the terminal during any peak and see that we clearly need to expand the terminal complex. And then some of the less highlighted things, but just as important, improving lane uses and with compatibility, and incorporating sustainability and future activity. So that's what we're really focused on and addressing in the master plan. Scroll, please.
They're asking that you could speak, please.
Oh, sorry, I'm facing away from the owl. Maybe I need to sit over there.
It's a personal matter.
So commission, will recall over the summer last year, we went to the council and said, okay, hey, we need to do this master plan process thing. And we provided a scope of work to which the council approved, and that involved a 30-month planning process. 2 phases broken down into the terminal complex and the airfield. The terminal complex would start first, because that's clearly where we need the most help. And then we would go to the air side and focus on improvements to the runway and taxiway systems, as well as the apron. And we also rolled in their sustainability planning, so making sure that we were planning for the future, both in terms of environmental sustainability as well as future financial sustainability. And then identifying land uses for Victoria to go out and sell property and rent property and make money. So that was the general scope of work. There were some other things included, but those were the highlights. Let's roll, please. The process background. So we started that process. I actually started it probably back in March, but we got it to the city council to approve the scope of work in July, or yeah, it was July 28th. We issued an RFP on August 15th. That RFP ran through September 14th when it closed. We selected the most qualified firm on September 22nd. Key thing to highlight there is that selection was based on qualifications only in the FAA process. We can't consider costs in that. So we looked at just qualifications. And December 22nd, we got a final cost proposal and scope of work is negotiated between the airport and the consultant. And then on January 11th, we submitted that scope of work to the FAA for them to consider for AIP funding. Meanwhile, we had been having discussions in the background with the FAA about, hey, we're going to do this master plan anyway, so please give us money, and they appropriated it in.
What the percentage is, 30, 20, 60, 40,
So they're
the
90-10.
90-10.
Yeah. So 10% will match us. The evaluation panelists, so that included myself as the project manager for this project. Joe Montpalo, who's the city engineer, I don't know if you all know him, and then Jay Rada, the director of community and economic development. We received 4 proposals from Mead and Hunt, who's on the line right now. Farland Johnson, the County Associates and RSNH. Mead and Hunt really stood out in that process, both for bringing innovation and fresh thinking to the process, as well as for the diversity of their skill set and the diversity of their team. Please. The rating criteria included the firm's ability or history of providing similar services at other airports. Again, the staff and team skill sets, the references they brought to the table and their history of doing work, and then a demonstrated understanding of the overall project as we requested it. Again, we couldn't use costs. So we negotiated that after the fact, but we factored in their deliverables, their innovative approaches, and their diversity as criteria as well. So the recommendation we are bringing to the commission and hopefully subsequently to the city council is recommending the Hunt as our master plan consultant. We want to send that to the council on January 26th. We're looking at a $2.1 million price tag. Most of that again funded by the FAA. And that is the decision that we now have before them. Next step involved. Just roll it a little bit. Sending this to council for approval. After which, upon approval, we would have a full commission strategy meeting. So if you recall, we had a strategy meeting over the fall to discuss some of the airport priorities from a staff perspective. This would be the commission from a planning perspective, getting in front of Mead and Hunt so they can understand from the full commission what the priorities are and how they can incorporate them in the planning process. We're proposing February 27th or 28th for that date between 1 and 5. And then Mead and Hunt would actually start their heavy lifting shortly after that with the working group, the ad hoc committee that we selected for this meeting. So that involves myself, project manager, Jeremy Ramon Sanchez as the ops manager, Victoria, because she deals with the money, and then Chairman Dada appointed himself, Vice Chair Porterman, Commissioner Kendrick, and Commissioner Miller represent the commission. And then Joel and Lindsay and Larry from IT will round out the city side to offer different perspectives. So that is the end of my slide. Ryan Hayes is on the call. I think he's still on the call. Ryan, if you are, you want to speak, now's your time to do so. Or five.
Great. Hello, everyone, and thank you for that introduction, Harry. My name is Ryan Hayes. I'm with Mead and Hunt. We also have Chuck McCormick with Mead and Hunt on, and I know you all have a full agenda, but I do have Harry, about 10 or 11 slides just to kind of preview the master plan process, if that's okay. Am I able to share a screen?
Yes, you can share your screen.
Okay. Christina, can you all see this?
No, we cannot.
Let me try. How about now?
No, not yet.
It's a great time for that. You guys.
Well, shoot, I'm sorry. I hit the share button, selected a screen. Share.
You're coming up.
There you go.
Perfect.
Is that it? You got it now? Okay. Okay. So just real quickly, we wanted to introduce ourselves again. Just give you a little bit of background as to why this project is needed, which Harry already mentioned, and then talk a little bit about the process and schedule. So Mead and Hunt is the prime consultant on this project, but we have a number of specialty sub-consultants who were selected based on the scope of services needed. So we've got a sub-consultant for public outreach, boundary survey, some environmental analysis, some terminal planning, architecture, vehicle parking, and financial. So we've got a team of consultants that'll be preparing this, and we're very much looking forward to helping you all through this long-term planning process. So again, Harry went over the why this is needed, but just to give you a little bit of background, what a master plan process is, it's very much a decision-making tool that guides orderly development of future airport facilities. So the FAA recommends that airports undertake master planning processes at least every 10 years, if not sooner, based on change conditions. And the reason they recommend that airports do this often, and the reason that they pay for 90% of the funding for this master plan, is it's very much a tool for their purposes as well. It results in an airport layout plan that shows the FAA that the Palm Springs Airport is designed and meets their standards. And it also gives them a preview of what you all have in mind in terms of capital projects coming down the road that you're going to be asking for their help in funding. So that's really what a master plan is. What it is not, just to be crystal clear, it is not a business plan. It's not a marketing plan. The FAA will not give airports grant funding to do marketing. They consider that your own expense. It's also not a noise study, although obviously we take noise into consideration. And I know we've already talked about that tonight. The potential for a noise barrier, if that's a capital project that the master plan can help facilitate and consider, that's certainly something that we'll be looking for. So what a master plan really is it's a physical development plan, long-term plan for Palm Springs Airport that reserves space for potentially needed facilities. The why on this, I think, is obvious. The passenger growth has been tremendous. The level of service is a consideration in the terminal area. And there's been a lot of changes in the industry since the last planning process. The airline fleet mix, emerging technologies, TNCs were not around during the last planning process. That's transportation network companies, Ubers and Lyfts. The potential for international flights and consideration of general aviation as well. I've got a chart here just to give you an idea of what the last master plan, this was actually the last terminal plan that Harry referenced, and the various forecast scenarios. So this is emplanements on the left side of this chart, passengers boarding an aircraft. So this is not total passengers, this is half of total passengers. but in calendar year 2022, you were close to 1.5 million employments, which puts you on a trend that is above all of the forecasts from the previous planning process. So the airport is growing faster than anyone envisioned previously. So there's a strong need to be trying to get ahead of that growth with your facilities. I just have a couple other slides to give you all an idea of the master plan concept from the previous planning process. Specifically related to the terminal building, there was a short-term plan for a CONRAC or a consolidated car rental facility. There was also some plans for some terminal renovation, but as you can see, there's no plans for terminal expansion. Nothing was identified, and again, because the growth was essentially under forecast, the airport is now kind of behind the curve from a growth standpoint. So that's going to be a big focus point for the master plan. In terms of process and schedule, Harry mentioned it's a 30-month process. We've got it shown on this chart in 4 pillars. Basically, we go through a pre-planning process, then an investigation stage. Then we start to look at solutions, capital alternatives for capital improvements that solve the problems the airport is facing. And then the 4th phase is the implementation and documentation phase, where we actually look at how to pay for all of the projects being recommended in the master plan. As you can see on this chart, public outreach happens throughout the process. That's both through the vehicle of the working group, as well as through some open houses in the community. Again, we're not going to do this planning process in a vacuum. We want to make sure the community is aware that the airport is planning and what it is planning. This is kind of a Gantt chart, just to give you an idea of the various master plan elements and the time frame for when we'll be undertaking each of these processes. So again, it's about a 30-month process that also includes some environmental analysis at the end once we have a master plan concept. And the master plan process is very iterative. It builds upon itself. Each phase builds upon the next phase. So that's really all I had. I know that was quick, but as Harry mentioned, we're looking forward to coming down in February and talking about this in a lot more detail. Any questions
One
on what the
question.
master plan is and is not?
Ryan, could you go back to the slide just before this again?
Yes.
So Harry, payment schedule, is it deliverable based? So as you move through this Gantt chart, deliverable comes, you approve it, payment.
Yes, to a degree. Victoria can speak better to how it works in terms of reimbursement for projects. Yes.
So, technically what ends up happening is the airport will pay for whatever it is, whatever the invoices that come through. Let's say they come through on a monthly basis, we'll pay those invoices. And then we'll request reimbursement from the FAA for that 90% share.
And we do provide progress reports to the FAA as we go, so they check in with us occasionally to say, hey, we need to know if these things were done, and say, okay, here's what we're.
Yeah, we definitely do that quarterly.
Got it. So Ryan, is it, if the airport has an issue in month 7, I guess I'm struggling a little bit with pay as you go as opposed to a deliverable based acceptance of the deliverable payment strategy. Can you kind of walk me through your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. So the bottom of this chart, the last line is documentation. We have a number of working papers. Again, those are essentially chapters of the master plan report. So those go to our working group as kind of the sounding board to the consultant team as we prepare those working papers, and then they eventually become chapters of the master plan report. So at the end of the process, we're going to have somewhere between a 8 to 12 chapter master plan document. And the invoices are sent on a % complete basis. So once that, once each working paper is delivered to the airport, we receive comments back, we receive comments from the working group, we address those comments, and then we invoice for that percentage of the master plan, if that makes sense.
Got it. I think I got it now. And the working group he's referring to is where you're the lead and you've got, I think, 10 or 15 people. Got it. So the working papers are the way the working group checks your work to ensure you're going to Tahiti and not going to Alaska.
Absolutely. That is correct.
Got it. Thanks.
Ryan, someone mentioned to us that the output from our strategic planning session in September of last year was forwarded to your group for review. Do you guys have all that information? And have you been able to?
Yes, it was. We have both the minutes and we were sent the YouTube video. All of that is very helpful information, helped us the scoping of this master plan. It helped us understand the airport's goals and the commission's goals and objectives for this planning process. So yes.
That's great.
So one more question on governance. Is there, inside the plan that you put up, the slide before began, is there a place to have a discussion around governance? And I'm specifically thinking about joint powers authority or something like that. Is that going to be in the master plan as we looked at it and we recommend doing it, or we looked at it and we don't recommend doing it for these reasons?
That's really not an element in the master planning process. Certainly, if the governance of the airport changes during the course of the planning process, we have the ability to adjust to fit that, but actually analyzing the governance of the airport is not an element.
Okay.
Commissioner Richards?
That's more of a discussion for the commission to have with the city council, correct? And not part of the master plan, correct? Yes.
So I don't know if this would be the consultants or Mary, but is there any formal role that the FAA takes outside of approving the reimbursement requests? Is there something that a hearing that they hold at the end of this process where they have to vote or anything of that nature?
That makes it the point.
Yeah.
There's no voting right now. But there are two levels that they actually do have to approve. Everything else they accept. So the first is the aeronautical forecast of the airport. And the second being the airport layout, which actually some people not.
Is that done at the regional, is that done at the district level, or is that done in Washington?
I believe both, it's done regionally, and then there are issues that need to arise to Washington, and then it goes to Washington.
Okay, so both parties, because they are two separate parties, have to weigh in on this stuff.
So 2 dates have been proposed. Monday, the 27th, and Tuesday, the 28th in February, for us to get together and to provide additional input in this process.
And I'm emailing that to the commission tomorrow, and everyone can give their availability to me.
The only one caveat is, there's some commitments we made tonight around our whole set of issues. So respond to the date. We may want to have a little more time just to deal with some of the issues we talked about earlier, because this is the forum I thought we would address those issues. So you're going to send it out, and we'll look at the dates look like, and look forward to moving forward with this on either one of those dates.
One more question for Ryan. Ryan?
Yes.
Is it fair to say that you're going to develop a plan that is what you should do, Palm Springs, but you're not going to put in that plan how you pay for it? Is that true?
Not entirely. The financial analysis in terms of how to pay for all of the master plan recommended capital improvements is part of our scope. We have folks who specialize in FAA funding and know all of the sources, and one of their jobs is going to be take the capital program and the cost estimates on all these projects and look at aligning funding sources with each of these projects. And some projects may be funded with multiple sources. So that's absolutely a component of the master plan, yes.
Great,
Brian,
thank you.
this is Chuck McCormick. I work with Brian. I used to actually work at the FAA years ago, and that's one of the items that, one of the main items FAA uses the master plan process and ALP is so they, like Brian said, they can plan out the future AIP or grant funds that the airport is going to need in the future. So definitely it's looking at the different projects and what projects that are eligible for the grant fund.
And also the master plan is included in the official statements that we issue when we issue bonds. So it's an extremely important document.
Thank you.
Okay, it's getting late. Can we move on? Ryan, thank you. Look forward to meeting you guys and working with you.
Thank you.
Motion.
Thank you.
Motion made.
Okay, I move to, we approve this and send it on to the city council.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for that. Okay. Air project and airport capital improvement program.
All right, so on this one, I have provided the executive director report. If you have any questions about the report, feel free to ask them at this time. I'm happy to address them. The couple of things I did want to highlight, though, were common use. We had an update to that. That's changed. We need to there and know where that is and how we're going to proceed.
Sure. Without Ramon being here, Ramon is doing a lot of the common use coordination and getting the ticket counter and the RJ terminal up to speed, and that's proceeding along. We have Amadeus was here this week, and we'll probably be here for the next few weeks trying to get that piece up to speed with the airline. In addition to that, we are starting some internal meetings with staff to try to make sure that we're talking to our IT folks and our staff to make sure that we can properly accommodate all the calls and tickets that may be coming from the new system. So we're busy behind the scenes trying to prepare.
So we're hoping, so Amadeus is on the other side, the hope is that we can work RJ total fairly soon, so the next 1 to 6 weeks. Just a little bit of flexibility. Remember there were 2 parts of the project, one. Which we did the commission back in the fall. We're going to wait on the Bono component because we don't want to disrupt the airlines and their operation. So that's going to hold off until May. But we are marching forward with common use. So some good news on that one. The other thing I just wanted to highlight briefly, just had been asked for, so I wanted to provide an update, since that update happened sort of last week, is with the airport use lease agreement with Victoria Airlines. We have come to a business deal with the airline. I will provide the details on that deal at a later date. What I'm waiting for is at least for one carrier to respond with their signature before I proceed. From our perspective, we got a pretty good deal out of it. And we think we're going to be very, very successful moving forward in terms of our problem.
Did you hear what we all talked about in the past without phone means now?
Which is
later.
Well, we made, it is a hybrid. It is a hybrid. So there is a residual component. There's also.
But that's yours.
And you'll tell us that. I'll go into the details in the future.
Thank you.
Other questions?
We're not on 9 yet, right?
No.
Is this specific to, I'm sorry, specific to?
The handout that you received, the executive summary, any other questions on the topic specifically?
Wi-Fi and then the closed session. Perfect.
So Wi-Fi. We have all kinds of large variables that I keep on And so I have my one-on-one meeting back in this car. But I understand that Wi-Fi is an issue. Understand that we need to want over more meeting. So I'll be addressing that back to Fred. Sorry, the other.
May close second request that came out of our last, I think, operations meeting.
Yes, so that was, and continues to be actually a discussion between, the city manager and city council. I'm really talking that all. You might have spoken first, I'm sorry. That continues to be a discussion between the city manager, city attorney and the city council. So I believe, they're going back and forth on that. I hope to have a better answer for you by the next meeting, but right now I just don't have it. Okay. Anything else for the executive director report?
Well,
We're not to the executive director report yet.
okay, that's what I wanted to check. Well, so I do have something.
Harry, yeah, what's the issue between the attorney and the city council? Yeah, I don't get it.
The issue is it's not so much the issue. The city council needs to make a decision on how and where, and to what degree they want the commission to involve in that process. And that's as much as I can,
That process being.
What discussion the commission should be involved in or not involved in,
Relative to the baggage situation or just?
to the litigation.
Litigation, got it,
that's what
got it. But we're all interested. Other questions? Zoom folks, we're all right to move forward? Legislative business ordinance update.
The only new update on that is that we plan for that also to go to the city council on January 26th. And just for as a reminder for everybody, the legitimate business ordinance kind of helps the police department enforce what should be legitimate business. You have a ticket, fly out your provider of goods, services on the airport, it could be on the airport. But the idea behind that is that we manage capacity, obviously, and that we don't have people sit there for. So that ordinance is headed by the police department. They've been working on it diligently for a few months now, and we expect it to go to council on the 25th, barring any surprise 11th hour. That's I did right, the ordinance that basically aligned.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I had a nice read through the city code and the powers of the executive director of the airport. And there's a very specific section in the city code that gives you authority to set rules and regulations for the airport property. And one of them specifically calls out for security and public health. And it lists a few other things. And if you read that, you have the authority currently under city code to establish those rules and to enforce those rules. And
This is true.
and so I think you should have a nice talk with the city attorney, because it's pretty clean and clear in those city ordinances, your power and authority and responsibility.
Right.
And so while I'm glad that this is moving forward, I think you had a lot of that authority before this. And because the police department is theoretically contracted to be the law enforcement for the airport, then they need to follow your lead and your direction in terms of the security, public health, and safety of the airport.
So you're not wrong on any of those points. The issue comes down to, frankly, for the police department, literally for them, it's letter of the law. but they can't. There are situations, I'm saying here that they're bored, but there have been situations where there's a challenge. And where frankly, the complaint has prevailed, just based on the letter of law. So what we're trying to do here is firm that up a bit, so that when we are challenged, we have a way to say.
Okay, because I've got to tell you, and I'm sure many of the members here, the last 3 months has been somewhat hectic in the complaints about things, but mostly about 2 things. And I am sure you're very well of those 2 things. And so I'm hoping that, you know, this will help solve some of that, but that you and the city attorney can have some strategies on not having to wait 3, 4, 5, 6 months to react, but maybe there could be some suggestions where you can put out some rules and some policies that can help you enforce that part of the city code.
Yeah, it will definitely, this ordinance will close the loop on that. So it'll, as much authority and power as I do have in that area, this will definitely help me enforce that.
Okay.
It's a lot of momentum.
How, I'll throw this out to the commission for, thought. Would there be interest in determining if we could create or collect monies that would allow the USO to stay open 24 hours, that would then allow personnel to spend the night at USO? They say that the only reason that people have done it in the past with larger groups, but for certain numbers of folks, when it falls below that, they can't afford to keep it open. So I'm wondering if we attack the problem from 2 ends. And one end would be give the military personnel that are flying that want not to do the hotel because they want to be able to walk right to the airport. I'm assuming it's a small number, to see if we could somehow fund the ability for the USO to.
That's not part of this agenda topic. So,
Okay,
sorry.
next week
Yes.
or next week.
Okay. Commissioners' requests, reports.
Now ask for that.
Can we put that on the agenda for next week?
Anything else?
Are we going to have a list of dates and topics for the long-range plan meetings? Is someone putting that list together, not just for the one in February, I mean, for the whole year? Is someone going to be giving us a list of the task force dates and all the meetings that are going to be part of that?
In terms of the master plan?
Yeah.
So we'll be able to forecast out to a degree, but some of that is gonna be dependent on certain things like FAA approval, for example, approval of the aeronautical. So sometimes that can be a lengthy process. We don't know exactly when we'll get that document back. There's work that can be done in the background, but there's some planning that we just can't do without having that in. So, to the extent possible, I'll work with Meeting Fund, work with the other team to make sure that we have that information available. But we probably can't do that for the year.
Okay, well, this farther as you can get it, the better, so we can all plan and get our calendars lined up accordingly. That'd be great.
Any other requests? You good?
You are gonna ask to put the committee things on the next agenda, right?
Yeah. Okay. All right. City council actions, anything else to say about that?
I have nothing on past city council action, then we've just updated you on the future thing going to.
Just the rejection of all bids, what happened on that? Is that just brick and mortar or just cabinetry kind of thing? Is that what?
This is what that was, we wanted to make some amendments to scope of work, and we also only had one proposal. We wanted to make sure we did the best. Yeah.
Christina, have you done it?
We've done it.
All right. Well, thank you all. Any other comments from our friends in Zoom? We're all good? All right, our next meeting is February 15th, 5:30 here. And again, you'll be getting the notice from Christina about whether the 27th or the 28th works best for your schedule. And again, stay within the time. You may want to expand that to address some of the issues we talked about earlier. And I think we're done. Can we get the proposal to wrap? All right, guys, good meeting. Thank you so much. Thank you, Christina. Thank you, staff. Thank you all for your preparation.